It is here. The day has come where I am finally talking about YouTube. Can you believe that it took 268 videos for this to happen? For once, I'm not going to explain what this is, because we are all on it right now. I don't have to tell you that they are a multi-billion-dollar video sharing platform, and I certainly don't have to tell you how successful they are. Alright, enough of that. We all know that they're huge, and there's already been a lot of content made about them. So for this video, I'm going to try to avoid talking about the specific creators and features and that kid who bit the other kid's finger and the things that you'll more commonly see in favor of talking about the company itself, looking a little deeper into the evolution, growth, and success of the business. It's a great story. YouTube was started by 3 guys, a designer named Chad Hurley and 2 engineers named Steve Chen and Jod Kareem. Amazingly, all of them in their 20s at the time, and all of them formally associated with PayPal. Chad Hurley was even one of their first 20 employees, and I believe even had a part in designing that original logo. I have a whole video that details the story of PayPal if you're interested, but the most relevant thing here is that in 2002, PayPal was sold to eBay for $1.5 billion. Since the 3 of them were so heavily involved, they made a lot of money from that deal. They kept in touch and remained friends for the next few years until early 2005 when they had this groundbreaking idea. How that initial idea came about is a debated subject. Hurley and Chen claimed that they had taken some videos at a dinner party that Kareem was not a part of, by the way, and when they went to email those photos, the file size was too big, they were unable to do it, and it made them think that there should be a better way to share videos over the internet. Now, Kareem claims that that whole story is fictional and that he was actually the one to come up with the idea. Basically, throughout the previous year, he took notice of how difficult it was to find specific videos on the internet, notably the infamous halftime wardrobe malfunction that happened in the previous Super Bowl and footage from the devastating Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami of that same year. But wherever that initial idea came from, they are all in agreement that the actual creation and evolution of the site was very much a team effort. Fittingly, Hurley designed the interface and the overall appearance, while Chen and Kareem were more concerned with the technological and making it all function. Like many other legendary tech companies, they started out of a garage and paid many of their early bills using credit cards. When they first created the site, they felt that there needed to be a direction to it, like a specific reason for people to upload videos. Oddly enough, the direction that they chose was to make it a dating site. Believe it or not, their biggest influence was a popular website at the time called hotornot.com. It's like a tongue twister. It was a place where people would post photos of themselves and then the users would vote how good looking they were. In the words of Jod Kareem, I was incredibly impressed with Hot or Not because it was the first time that someone had designed a website where anyone can upload content that everyone else could see. That was a new concept because up until that point, it was always the people who own the website who would provide that content. So they envisioned a site that would use that same principle, where people would hopefully post videos of themselves hoping to find a connection with someone. They even had a slogan ready: tune in, hook up. Looking back at it, I don't know, it may not have been the worst idea in theory anyway, but they had a terrible time getting people to use it. I mean, they were desperate. I guess they even took out an ad on Craigslist offering women $20 to upload a video of themselves, and even then, they couldn't get anybody to do it. They quickly gave up on the idea and widened their potential user base by allowing people to upload any kind of video they wanted. The first official YouTube video was uploaded on April 23rd, 2005. It features Jod Kareem himself in front of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo. It's like a legendary video at this point, in a way demonstrating that a video didn't have to be fancy or high quality or even well thought out to have some entertainment value. About a month later, they released their beta version to the public and it caught on pretty quick. I think that's impressive because they were competing with some similar platforms that already existed, maybe the most notable one being Google Video. But YouTube had a way of standing out from the others in that it was so simple and unpolished that it had a real non-corporate underground type feel to it. Not to mention the iconic name and logo that made it feel like it was all about you, where you can broadcast yourself. MySpace was big too, in that the users over there would commonly link YouTube videos to their pages. It actually became their greatest single source of traffic in the US, which I am pretty sure is not the case anymore. By the end of the year, they had some of their first ever viral videos. A Nike ad featuring Brazilian soccer player Ronaldinho doing some impressive stuff with a soccer ball was the first first video to reach 1 million views. And then the SNL comedy music video Lazy Sunday with Andy Samberg and Chris Parnell was getting a lot of attention as well. Now, I could be wrong about this, but I believe that was the first video that I had ever seen on YouTube. Let me know if you remember your first video. Their big issue during this time was a troubling lack of money. As they became more popular, the costs kept getting higher, paying for the bandwidth and the servers and dozens of employees. Meanwhile, there was almost no revenue coming in because at that stage they were much more concerned with growing their user base. They felt that putting ads in the videos would detract the viewers and make them lose that whole underground feeling that was so important at the time. To keep things running, they found an investor called Sequoia Capital and they provided $11.5 million, but I think we all know that the big moment, the one that changed the internet forever, happened in October of 2006. That is when Google paid $1.65 billion to buy YouTube. It was by far their biggest acquisition to that point, but they were able to do it without much trouble, partially because Google had paid for it using their own stock that had gone up quite a bit over the past few years. I think most would agree that this was everything lining up perfectly. Google and YouTube were like the perfect fitting puzzle pieces where the two had exactly what each other needed. As I mentioned, Google Video, their competing service, was not doing nearly as well, so buying the market leader was their way of taking control. And on YouTube's end, they needed someone that was bigger, that can protect them and keep things running while they continued growing their user base and ultimately figure out how to become profitable. Plus, Google had a huge network of advertisers, available data storage, and a legal team to fight copyright issues. I realize that copyright issues remain a huge issue on YouTube, but I think we can say that back then they were far more concerning. There was a music sharing website called Napster that had shut down mostly due to copyright issues a few years earlier, and many people were calling YouTube the video version of that, predicting that it would have a similar fate. Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks basketball team and former owner of the internet radio site Broadcast.com, was especially vocal in his concerns, saying that only a moron would buy YouTube. I don't know if I would have gone that far, but I definitely see where he was coming from. Paying $1.65 billion for a company that's less than 2 years old, hardly makes any money, and is facing major legal issues is a definite gamble. To try to combat copyright issues, there was even a 10-minute time limit on all YouTube videos that would exist for the next 4 years, and Google even set aside $200 million to address potential legal costs. Fortunately, the issues haven't been nearly as severe as once feared, due to many of the copyright holders working with YouTube in different capacities, and a system in place allowing them to voice complaints and claim videos. It's not a perfect system, I want to make that clear, but things have gone far better than they did with Napster. Following that big acquisition, YouTube started going down a path of licensing outside content to show on the platform. In April of 2008, they made all of these deals with major studios to show their content on YouTube. Netflix and Hulu had recently started their streaming services, and this was seemingly an attempt to compete with them. A couple years later, they launched a service called YouTube Rentals, where you could rent movies. It was all definitely a departure for them, and in my opinion, pulling further away from what made them special. In 2011, they bought a video producer called Next New Networks for about $50 million. Obviously not the biggest or most impactful acquisition in itself, but it did represent a turning point. That right there was the first major step that YouTube took away from licensing other people's content and toward producing their own content. The idea there was to give select content creators access to the production team so they can make bigger and better videos. And then later in that year, they invested $100 million into creating more original content, though it was mostly with people well known outside of YouTube, like Tony Hawk, for example. So from there, the next major step was further shifting their reliance toward existing YouTube content creators, the YouTubers. For this, I'm talking about their partnership program. Whenever you see an ad on YouTube, the money the advertiser paid for that ad is generally split between YouTube and the creator of that video. It's a partnership that works because the creators utilize YouTube to get their stuff out there and to bring in the advertisers, and YouTube utilizes the creators, for their creations. It's the idea that if the creators get paid for what they do, they'll put more time and effort into it and it'll turn out better, and then that'll attract more viewers, and it's a great cycle. Before Google was involved, none of this existed. The viewer would see maybe an occasional banner ad when watching a video, but the revenue was never split with the creator. In 2007, only months after Google took control, they introduced the partnership program. You had to apply for it, it was pretty exclusive, and there was very little revenue overall anyway, because it was another year and a half before YouTube started showing the much more valuable pre-roll ads, the ones that you're forced to watch before the video starts. By 2011, YouTube said that there were hundreds of partners making 6 figures a year, meaning it was possible for a select group of people to make a career out of it, but the following year, as part of their push toward original content, they opened the gates. They extended the partnership program to essentially everyone. 5 years later, again mostly due to copyright issues, they narrowed it down to where you needed to have 10,000 views to qualify for it. That has since been changed. As the audience grows, more creators join in making the videos, and then more advertisers join in and advertising on those videos. It's a cycle that continues to expand, shown by the fact that YouTube's ad revenue has more than tripled since 2017, actually growing at a faster rate than the rest of Google. As of the end of 2021, YouTube accounts for over 11% of their total revenue, and that doesn't even include YouTube subscription revenue. In 2015, they introduced YouTube Red, whose name was later changed to YouTube Premium. It gives the users the option to get rid of all those ads for a monthly fee, but another part of it is the original content, that unlike the previous initiative with Tony Hawk and all of that, a lot of the content is produced by existing YouTube content creators. I think further showing the reliance on the creators that grew with the platform. And to finish things off, probably the most significant change in a long time has been YouTube Shorts. They are vertical videos that are less than a minute long and suspiciously similar to what you would see on TikTok. Well, obviously, it's YouTube's response to it. They were introduced in India in 2020 and then in the US and most of the other countries the following year, and already account for billions of views every day. They're also different in that they don't have ads attached to them, so they're not part of the existing partnership system, but they did commit $100 million to motivate people to create these shorts in hopes that, much like they did before, there will be an effective way to monetize them once they grow an audience. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of YouTube? It's not a perfect system. They've had many issues and criticisms over the years from users, creators, and advertisers, but overall, I would say it's pretty amazing. What has been your experience with the platform from any of those perspectives as a user, creator, advertiser, and what do you see for the future of it? Maybe you think that the YouTube Shorts are going to take over. I don't know. And any other thoughts you have about YouTube, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Really quick, this right here concludes 5 years of weekly videos on the Company Man YouTube channel. I can't believe I'm saying that. I have been doing this since they were still using that original logo. It was my motivation for making this video today. I tried my best to stay objective, but YouTube has absolutely been a huge part of my life over that time. So thank you everybody for staying with me for so long and just coming back each week. So once again, for the final time in year 5, thank you for watching.